Egyptian Foreign Minister calls for comprehensive political process in Syria. Israeli warplanes target a tent sheltering displaced people in Deir al-Balah, killing several Palestinians. South Korea's acting president, Dan Duck-soo, calls on military to maintain readiness against North Korea's provocations. Good evening, and you're now watching Q News. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Syria. During the talks, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulhadi has confirmed consensus on Syria, urging all parties to commit to a comprehensive political process. Khaled called on Israel to halt its violations in Syria during a joint press conference following the Aqaba meeting. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has stated that the United States has made direct contact with Syria's victorious Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. He did not provide details on how he contacted or the contact took place, but when asked if the United States had reached out directly, he replied, "Direct contact, yes." He also stated that in the dialogue with the HTS, the United States shared the principles on Syria that he previously outlined.
Countries throughout the region and well beyond.
Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi has pledged support for Syria during its reconstruction phase, emphasizing the importance of helping the Syrian people achieve their aspirations. Safadi emphasized that the Aqaba talks aim to include all Syrian components in the future political process and underscored the UN's crucial role in Syria's transitional period. He also stressed that regional powers are committed to preventing Syria from descending into chaos. Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein has also outlined regional efforts to establish an inclusive political system in Syria, one that guarantees the rights of all Syrians. He further warned that regional powers do not want to see another Libya in the region, as he stated during a press conference at the Aqaba meetings. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has stated that the European Union is prepared to do more. Kallas stated that Syria faces a hopeful yet uncertain future, which is why all participants at the conference agreed on the principles that the new leadership should follow. She added that these principles include stability, sovereignty, territorial integrity, respect for minorities, opposition to radicalization, institution building, a unified government that includes all groups in Syria, and accountability for crimes committed.
All the groups in Syria, and also accountability for the crimes.
The final statement from the Arab Ministerial Contact Committee on Syria has reaffirmed its support for the Syrian people and their rights to self-determination. The committee, composed of Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Lebanon, and the Arab League, condemned Israeli attacks on Syrian territory and emphasized the importance of a peaceful Syrian-led political transition. The statement also denounced Israel's violation of the international law and the 1974 disengagement agreement. And for more analysis, we now move to Mark in our newsroom. Mark.
Thank you very much, Mona. Now we're joined from Cairo by the International Relations Professor Hamed Faris. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. So what were the key points agreed by the Arab foreign ministers during their meeting regarding the situation in Syria?
Of course, there are different points that are very important, and the powers are now working to find an understanding to solve the situation in Syria, as what's happening in Syria is a great threat to the Syrian unity. They are seeking reaching an understanding in a framework of the political process, and now we're in a crossroads, which has been stressed by the Ministerial Arab Group to find solutions to unite the Arabian stance towards the Syrian situation. So the Arab states now are providing all kinds of supports possible in a political process. In this period is now a test to the Syrian government that is trying to seize the opportunity and to achieve the aspirations of the Syrian people.
And of course, Egypt's foreign minister has called for a need for a comprehensive political process when it comes to Syria. What does that mean?
The Egyptian state is concerned with the stability of the situation in the Middle East, and it's seeking finding a unified vision to the Syrian state in line with the Egyptian vision to the stability of the Middle East and the Arab region. There are too many threats threatening the Arab stability, so there has to be a positive move in line with the Egyptian vision, as the Egyptian government is seeking the preservation of the Syrian people's rights and the unity and sovereignty of the Syrian territories. In the midst of this vulnerability state the Syrian state is suffering from at the moment, as the Egyptian state through its political leadership is viewing the situation in Syria as it's a crossroads situation to reach peace and working for a parliamentary elections very soon. So the Egyptian state has a true vision to maintain the stability of the region through the stability of Syria.
And what did the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, reveal about the US's direct contact with Syrian armed factions?
Of course, it is very dangerous because so far there has no description for these terrorist groups as who's ruling Syria in accordance to the international community is a terrorist group, a terrorist organization. So there has to be set definitions to find common grounds to push for harmony in the Syrian affairs. So we should move first to support the current government in Syria and stop all the Israeli movements which are a great threat to the Syrian stability. So Blinken's statements and visit is not really paying off, and we look forward to more measures in the upcoming short period before Biden leaves office to support the stability of the Middle East.
And did Jordan make commitments concerning Syria's reconstruction?
The reconstruction of Syria is a very important topic, but how can we work for reconstruction when there is instability? We need to work with all the Arab states to find understandings that lead to the improvement of the economic situation and building the infrastructure in Syria. and returning the displaced Syrians from all around the world. This Syrian condition has been going since 2011, which displaced a lot of Syrian citizens. They have to go back to Syria, which will require reconstruction and Arab consensus supporting the Syrian unity and sovereignty, which is the main topic to build upon during the upcoming period, so that we have Syrian consensus and unity in the face of all challenges. Jordan is a very important and influential state seeking a true solution for the Syrian situation.
Well, thank you very much. From Cairo, International Relations Professor Hamed Faris. Thank you very much for your insights. And it's back to you, Mona.
Thank you so much, Mark, for the analysis. And back to our bulletin. Jordan has hosted US, EU, Turkish and Arab diplomats for high-level talks on Syria. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, on a regional Syria-focused tour, also joined the Aqaba meeting. Meanwhile, Turkey will reopen its embassy in Damascus, which has been closed since 2012, amid calls from Ankara for al-Assad to step down. A Qatari diplomat stated that a delegation from the Gulf Emirates would visit Syria on Sunday to meet with transitional government officials and discuss aid and the opening of their embassy. U.S. CENTCOM Commander General Michael Kurilla has visited Israel for discussions with Israeli military officials on Syria and other regional developments. Kurilla met with the Israeli military chief Haritzhi Halevi and Defense Minister Israel Katz, stressing the need for coordination following the end of Assad's 50-year rule. His regional tour included visits to Jordan, Syria, Iraq and Lebanon, where he observed Israel's partial withdrawal under a fragile ceasefire. Meanwhile, Israel's Gaza campaign continues amid international criticism and accusations of genocide. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told the United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, that he wanted the UN to play a critical role in delivering assistance to Syria. Pedersen stated that he wanted to ensure Syria does not collapse, that humanitarian aid flows in quickly, and that the UN supports a credible and inclusive political process. Meanwhile, Blinken is touring the Middle East to establish a united front with Arab and Turkish allies on a set of principles that Washington hopes will guide Syria's political transition, including inclusivity and respect for minorities.
Going forward, so I look forward to this opportunity to compare notes with the envoy.
The UN Special Envoy to Syria, Geir Pedersen, has called for a genuine political process to unite all Syrian factions. He further emphasized the need to preserve state institutions and expedite the delivery of humanitarian aid to those in need. Meanwhile, Syrian state television announced the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime, broadcasting a red screen with a message declaring the victory of the Great Syrian Revolution. This development follows 11 days of intense clashes between Syrian factions and the military. State TV urged citizens to protect public property and comply with interim oversight led by the Prime Minister. Several Palestinians have been killed, including a child, when Israeli warplanes targeted a tent sheltering displaced people in Deir al-Balah, central Gaza. Of a Palestinian Palestine's news agency reported that 4 Palestinians, including a child, were killed and several others injured in an airstrike on a tent near Al-Asr Mosque south of Deir al-Balah. In a separate incident, Israeli forces demolished several residential buildings in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from the Israeli attack on the Gaza Strip has risen to over 44,930, with more than 106,454 others wounded. According to medical reports, Israeli occupation forces committed 2 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip over the past 24 hours, resulting in the killing of at least 55 Palestinians and the injury of 170 others. UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell has called for urgent global actions to end the daily suffering of the Gaza's children, who continue to endure bloodshed, hunger, disease and cold. In a statement, Russell condemned the world's indifference to Gaza's suffering, where children are daily victims of violence. She highlighted the recent Israeli attack on the Nusayrat refugee camp, which pushed the child death toll in Gaza to over 160 in the past month. Russell also noted that 14,500 children have been killed in the past 14 months and 1.1 million are in urgent need of protection and support. Israeli attacks around Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza has injured 3 medical staff overnight and caused damage to the facility. Hospital Director Hossam Abu Safiya said that Israeli quadcopter drones carrying explosives deliberately targeted the emergency and reception area of the hospital, wounding 1 doctor. Israeli occupation forces have arrested at least 15 Palestinians from various areas of the West Bank. According to the Palestinian authorities, Prisoners and Ex-Prisoners Affairs Commission and Palestinian Prisoners Society, the arrests were distributed among the governorates of Ramallah, Tulkarm, Al-Khalil, Jenin and Jerusalem. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has discussed with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Rome the latest developments in the Palestinian cause. President Abbas condemned the Israeli aggression, which has led to massive casualties and destruction. He also criticized ongoing violence in the West Bank and Jerusalem. He called for the implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 2735, urging a ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and humanitarian aid. The president also emphasized the need for the Palestinian Authority to resume its role in Gaza. At least 77 U.S. Democrats have signed a letter to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, urging the administration to provide a full assessment of Israel's compliance with U.S. arms policies and laws. The legislators said they are deeply troubled by the continued level of civilian casualties and humanitarian suffering in Gaza. While the signatories welcomed the 30-day deadline in October for Israel to increase humanitarian aid to Gaza or else risk losing U.S. weapons, they said that now that the ultimatum has passed, Israel has not yet fulfilled the requirements outlined. Moving on to the situation in Gaza, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has discussed efforts with visiting U.S. officials to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and a detainee deal in the Palestinian enclave. Ambassador Mohammed al-Shinnawi stated that the meeting also addressed preserving the ceasefire in Lebanon as a foundation for regional calm and reviewed developments in Syria. The officials who met with President al-Sisi in Cairo included U.S. National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan and U.S. Middle East Envoy Brett McCurk. South Korea's acting president Han Duck-soo has held his first cabinet meeting after Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached in a second vote. Prime Minister Han, who was appointed by Yoon, became acting president while Yoon remains in office, but with his presidential powers suspended halfway through his 5-year term. The political crisis, which has led to the resignation or arrest of several senior defense and military officials, has raised concerns over the South's ability to deter nuclear-armed North Korea at a time when Pyongyang is expanding its arsenal and deepening ties with Russia. South Korea's opposition-led parliament has impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol under the constitution. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who was appointed by Yoon, became acting president. Yoon is the second conservative president in a row to be impeached in South Korea after Park Geun-hye was removed from office in 2017. South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol has vowed to fight on, promising to do his best for the country until the very end. Yoon's impeachment came today after the opposition-led parliament held a second vote, following his controversial attempt last week to impose martial law. The move, which shocked the nation and divided his own party, led to his suspension from presidential duties. Under the constitution, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, appointed by Yoon, will serve as acting president while Yoon remains in office, albeit with his powers temporarily stripped.
최선을 다해 주시기 바랍니다.
And moving on to the Russo-Ukraine conflict, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has said that Russia armed forces used North Korean soldiers in the assaults in the Kherson region. Zelensky said in his daily evening address that so far North Korean troops were involved only in the fighting in the Kherson region, but that they could be deployed in other parts of this front.
Фактично Москва втягнула цю війну ще.
Russian regional governor Andrei Klishkov has stated that Ukrainian drones attacked an infrastructure facility storing fuel in central Russia's Ural region, sparking a fire. Other Russian regions also reported Ukrainian drone attacks, including Krasnodar, Bryansk, and Belgorod. Meanwhile, Ukrainian news outlets reported that Russian troops were closing in on Petrovsk, an eastern city considered a key logistical hub for the Ukrainian military. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here is what we've been covering. Egyptian Foreign Minister calls for comprehensive political process in Syria. Israeli warplanes target a tent sheltering displaced people in Deir al-Balah, killing several Palestinians. And South Korea's acting president Han Duck-soo calls on military to maintain readiness against North Korea's provocation. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok on Q News EGY to stay informed. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.